Hey, I'm Brendan Moran with Walnut Creek TV. Today we are here with newly appointed Mayor Cindy Silva to talk about what's going on with Walnut Creek and what's in store for the future. Cindy, welcome.
Thank you, Brendan.
So the first question is, of course, how is the state of the city?
I think we have a lot to celebrate. Let's just take last year on our roads. We invested new state transportation funds in long overdue rehabilitation work on Oak Grove Road. It's a fabulous project. We were able to do a lot, and we'll be able to take these new transportation dollars in the future and work on Ignacio Valley Road, North Main Street, North Broadway, so really get some things done related to road conditions and traffic. You're on the Park and Recreation Commission for us, and as you know, we rehabilitated Larkey Pool and put in a new splash pad about 18 months ago, and we had another banner summer of lots of kids and families out there, which is really great. And the Heather Farm Park All Abilities Playground continues to be probably the most popular outdoor venue in town. You cannot find a parking place or a space on the playground on some days and evenings. In terms of the local economy, we've had a lot of reinvestment in the economy in the last 5 years since the end of the recession. Most people know Broadway Plaza invested about $250 million in its project. It's coming to a close, and that project included about 2,300 more parking spaces and a much better parking experience. We've had remodels and refreshes at 2 of our neighborhood shopping centers, Rossmore Shopping Center and Encina Grande, and the new Orchards Shopping Center. So there's a lot going on in the local economy. We have a lot of sustainability goals. So what have we done? We joined Marin Clean Energy, and this last year we chose to opt up to 100% electric renewable energy for all of our community facilities. We're installing more EV charging stations in our parking lots and parking garages. We've put in solar panels at Boundary Oak and Heather Farm Park, and we even have solar-powered trash and recycling compactors on our downtown streets. And near and dear to my heart, we had a great Community Service Day in October this past year, where more than 1,400 volunteers came out to work on projects, and we will do it again this year in our 9th year.
Cindy, the City Council has been focused on 4 strategic priorities in the past couple of years. And of course, one of them is housing. And I know you know this, but a lot of people, when they drive around downtown Walnut Creek, they might say, why are there so many apartments being built, right?
Okay.
Can you talk to me about that?
I can, and it's a very fair question, but if you don't mind, I think I'm going to roll back and do a little bit of a framework perspective. First of all, housing is fundamental. People need places to live. It's fundamental to quality of life, and it's fundamental to a strong local economy as well as a statewide economy. And in California, I would say over the last decade, we have not been producing enough housing across the state to fill the needs of the people that we have here and who are working here. And it's become exacerbated since the end of the recession. In fact, there's a statistic that says that we've added 500,000 jobs in the Bay Area, mostly in the high-tech sector, and only 100,000 housing units. So there are not enough places for people to live. We even have young people in their 20s and early 30s. They work in the tech sector, they work in Silicon Valley, and they're paying $2,000 a month to live in a dining room in San Francisco. So if you don't have enough housing units, you end up with high costs, you end up with more homelessness, you end up with more traffic because people have to live further away from where they work, so you have long commute times. And in general, it just degrades the quality of life. And ultimately, if you don't have enough housing, big business will start moving those jobs into other states where housing is of a lower cost and their employees won't have to drive as far. And that creates more unemployment. So it is a fundamental issue. And this is a crisis level in this state such that the state legislature and our newly installed Governor Newsom are making it a top priority of how do we build more housing. But that doesn't actually answer the question of, well, why have we had so many apartments and so much going on downtown? So I need to roll back to the early 2000s, if you don't mind.
No.
That's when the community was working on our general plan. It's a 20-year plan. And one of the basic questions was, how much will Walnut Creek grow? And the answer was about 0.5% per year, which translates to about 325 to 350 new people per year. It's about about the size of a senior class at either Los Lomas or Northgate High School. But then the next question is, well, how many housing units does that translate to? And it's about 150 to 200 new units each year. So then the fundamental question for the community was, where do we put them? And we start with the basic question of, should we sell the open space and allow it to take on the hills? And there was probably an emphatic no, maybe with a few expletives in front of it, because we want to protect that unique thing that Walnut Creek has, which is our open space. And then the question was, well, do we put townhomes into the single-family neighborhoods and apartments in the single-family neighborhoods? And the answer was, well, no, we want to preserve the character of our single-family neighborhoods, and therefore the answer was the additional housing that we need would go downtown, and it would be more multi-story, multi-family. So that's how we got here. Why it seems like a lot now is because from 2009 to 2013, nothing got built because of the recession. So you had projects that had been approved in 2007 and 2008 that sat waiting to come out of the ground. And then once money was available, when the economy was starting to recover, then building started, and it all started in a very compact space because it's downtown. But it's really a better place for our housing because it preserves the open space, preserves our single-family neighborhoods, and it translates to fewer car trips because people come home, they park their car in their building, and they walk to dinner, they walk to the movies. They're not competing with you and me for those precious parking spaces that we want for downtown. And it will probably slow a bit because the pent-up demand is done, but, and here's the challenge, Sacramento is convinced that we're in the way of housing and allowing it to happen. And so there's going to be a continuing pressure for us to basically to take away our local control over the housing production and to put all of the rules in the hands of the state and actually the development community. We're lobbying against that, and we will continue to do so, but we may not be as successful as we'd like.
Cindy, residents and business owners, they always mention concerns about homelessness. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll reiterate something someone said to me recently. One homeless person is one too many. So we'll start there. California has a significant problem. 25% of the nation's homeless are in the state of California. And it is affecting all cities and all counties. So Walnut Creek isn't unusual. So 2 years ago, I was very proud of the council. All of us agreed that we needed to have homelessness as one of our primary goals. And we set out to come up with a reasonable response to homelessness. We wanted to be realistic. We wanted to have a response that respected the rights of those who are unfortunately homeless, as well as our residents and the rights of business owners and employees and visitors. But we also recognized that reasonable response needed to recognize that every individual is unique. There is not one cause of homelessness. You could be a veteran with PTSD or a mother with children who was a sufferer from domestic abuse, and a gamut of issues in between. So that means that there is no one solution. There's no one size fits all. Each solution would have to be specific to the person. So what we have done is we created a homeless services fund, and we are dedicated to funding it at $200,000 per year. And we're using those funds first and foremost to support a homeless outreach team. It's called, the acronym is CORE, but it's really teams of social service caseworkers from the county who go into our community and make contact with those who are living outside, whether they're adults, youth, or families, and really learning what the specific needs are and what it will take to stabilize them and get them into the services they need. So it's really a one-on one solution. We're partnering with Concord and the county on that. We're also using the fund to support the work of the Trinity Center, which is the non-for-profit in Walnut Creek that provides the Respite Day Services Center. It's not a shelter, nor is it a food kitchen. They really provide social services that to help lift up and get the homeless the services they need. And we're also using the fund to support the Winter Nights Shelter, which is in its 4th year and is at the National Guard Armory again this year, which is operated by Trinity Center on our behalf, but we are a partner in that. And we also have a homeless services task force that is a multidisciplinary committee that meets once a month. It involves our police department, our county social workers, the Trinity Center, the faith community, the business community, and they really take issues that come up and try to address them as quickly as possible. For example, recently this last year, there was an issue there were not enough mental health beds for the homeless, and John Muir came up with some. The next month they had them available. So that's the kinds of solutions we're working on, and I know we need to do more, and I'm sure that we will, but I'm very proud of what we've been able to do so far.
Cindy, the city is undertaking an initiative called Your Parks, Your Future.
Okay.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I'm delighted to, because I think this is very exciting. But first, let's say Walnut Creek is a mature community. Most of our growth actually occurred right after World War II and up through about the mid-1970s. And that was when we built City Hall, and a lot of our park facilities, a lot of our community facilities, our pools, our libraries. Fortunately, we've been able to replace City Hall and the police department, and we have been able to replace the downtown library and rebuild Larkey Pool. But we have 4 other widely used community facilities that are nearly 50 years old, and they're aging such that the technical term would be they're ending their useful lives.
Yes.
And that's the Heather Farm Community Center and the Clark Swim Center that's right there, the Shadelands Arts Center, and then here downtown, the Civic Park Community Center and Senior Center. And it's not that they are unsafe, but they're not as structurally sound today as they were when they were built in the early 1970s, nor fire safe. Accessibility issues are difficult. And they also were built and designed in a time when people had a very different framework of what community facilities should be. And I think about it, and I think back and I go, I think in the late 1960s we were still using rotary telephones, and where I grew up there was still a party line.
Right.
So things have evolved significantly. So now fast forward, what do we do about these 4 facilities, and how do we figure out what to do and figure out how to fund it? And that's the purpose of the Your Parks, Your Future program. It's a 2-year program. It's actively involving the community, and we really need to figure out what programs do we think we're going to need over the next 50 years. I hope you have a crystal ball. And also how these facilities would best work, and then how we're going to fund it. There's an advisory committee. There are community workshops. The first workshop had 150 participants, which was fabulous, and it was of all ages. And I hope the community can get engaged. There's a website page. It's www.walnut-creek.org/yourparks. And let's get it done together.
So if somebody's interested in providing their input or maybe being on a committee, they can just go to the website and
go to that
web
page and find out how to get involved, because I don't know precisely. The committee's been formed,
right.
But we are at a stage where community input is absolutely needed on it.
Cindy, the city recently approved the Economic Development Strategic Plan, which took about 2 years and a lot of community input.
Yes, it did.
What are your takeaways from that?
Well, as I mentioned previously, we've had a lot of good economic development activity in the last 5 years since the end of the recession, but this new plan is really designed to take us forward for the next 5, maybe 10 years. And I think my first takeaway is what we learned about ourselves, and we have a strong economy, and we are very competitive regionally. We have a good location, we're a hub of transportation, we have a skilled and educated workforce, and we have a great quality of life, which is really a draw and attractive to potential businesses and employers. A good downtown, good schools, beautiful open space, the arts scene, Broadway Plaza, and we are building housing. All of this is attractive in an economic development environment. But what we also learned is while we are good and we have been successful, what got us here is probably not what will carry us forward. So our strengths currently and up to date have been the healthcare. We have 3 hospitals located here, the auto sales and service, and our retail restaurant environment, particularly downtown. And those are changing and evolving over time, both healthcare at the federal level, of course, and then auto, what will the Uber, Lyft environment and autonomous vehicles really mean? And then the retail restaurant environment is really because you can buy a lot online. The brick and mortar, it's not becoming obsolete, it's just having to change and become different. So more experiential and less about transactional.
Right.
So the takeaways besides those are that housing downtown is important because the younger workforce of today wants to live in the kind of environment we offer downtown. And employers recognize that even if they're not located downtown and they might be located in Shadelands Business Park. They want their employees to be able to live and work in the same community. We need to focus on transportation and transportation alternatives like the Lime Bike sharing program, things that allow people to get around without having to have a car. And then as we look at businesses and industries where we can diversify, think about nurturing and incubating small businesses, maybe focused in high tech, med tech, biotech, but not trying to grab the next Google coming in that wants a gazillion square feet of space because we don't have the room for that. And think about workforce development and how we can improve our development review process. It's a lot to consider. We have some things we can do as a city that we can take action on, and there's a lot that the business community will be wanting to implement.
So let's talk about parking.
Oh boy.
Yes, one of the favorite concerns of a lot of people around here.
Of course.
Can you just talk about what's happening with that?
Well, first I'll say it's completely understandable whether you're a resident or an employee downtown or a business owner or a visitor. You really want parking that is simple and easy to understand, has reasonable availability at a price that makes sense to people and that they won't make a mistake on, and don't get tickets. It's been a major focus of the council, I would say, almost since I've been on the council. That question is, how do we best manage 10,000 parking spaces, which is what we have downtown, when we only own 3,000 of them? So how do we manage our 3,000 and affect the way the other 7,000 are being managed to create a whole solution? I think we've done some great things recently. The first is we took 1,000 meters that are outside the downtown streets that are just north or south or west, and we converted them to long-term parking. So you can stay there all day for only $1 an hour, and it's a great solution if you're going to be here a long time and you're willing to walk, and it's a really great solution for local employees because it's an economical solution. What you need to do is go look for the purple painted poles on those streets. The second thing we did is we're starting to use technology. We have the Park Mobile app, which means if you use that smartphone app in conjunction with the meter, the app will tell you when your meter is up, and you can actually put additional money on the meter without running back to that meter, so you don't have to get a ticket and you don't have to leave your lunch to go feed the meter. We're putting in new meters. In fact, as we're sitting here, Brendan, those meters are being installed on Main Street and Locust, and these are more advanced. They're easier to read, and I've had the opportunity to test them, so you don't get the sun glare or night darkness on them, and they take all forms of pay, and I think that will make it much easier for people for parking. And I'm very excited about this fourth item, which is we are testing an attendant-assisted parking program at our North Broadway garage. And this is a program where, without paying any additional money, you are allowed to park in the drive aisles. All you have to do is leave your keys with the attendant, and the attendant will move your car if they need to. And then when you come back, you get your keys back and you drive off and pay the regular fee that you would have. This is increasing the capacity in that Broadway garage by 20%. So once we're done with the test and we worked out the kinks, we can actually increase capacity without having to buy any land or pour any concrete, which I think is really important. But I know going forward we're going to be continuing to wrestle with this question. I think there are some questions in my mind. How can we encourage the employees of businesses to take advantage of those long-term spaces outside the downtown area? Because the employee of a business is always here before you or I am, because they have to open the business.
Right.
How can we take advantage of the attendant-assisted parking and what it learns? Could we partner with the residential buildings that are coming out of the ground downtown and actually somehow share some of their daytime available parking in their buildings while their residents are at work for use by maybe downtown employees, where they're kind of off and out of the way? Can we use technology more? You know, Broadway Plaza, when they rebuilt their garage, they have these red lights and green lights now that tell you exactly where an open space is. How can we use technology to do the same thing on the streets and in our garages? And what will Uber and Lyft and other ride services such as that impact going forward? Lime bikes, things like that, bike share, how will that impact it? And then ultimately, if we were doing any renovation, particularly here north area, would we be able to take some of our land and build a small parking garage to support more at the north end? So I think those are all great, exciting things to work on, and I am delighted to answer the parking question.
Cindy, tough question for you.
Okay.
What keeps you up at night?
Related
About
to
the city. Yes, about the city.
That is a really fair question, and having been on the council 12 years, this answer is probably been for the last 10, to do everything we've talked about. Maintain low crime rates, ensure a safe community, maintain our roads and our infrastructure, and deliver the quality of life services that the community, that's important to the community and important to the business community, libraries, parks. It requires a fiscally sustainable environment. Our budget is balanced and we have strong, healthy reserves. But like all 90% of the cities in the state of California that participate in the California Public Employee Pension System, those pension funding issues are beginning to serve a huge economic drag on our budget, and it is getting worse year over year. They're unfunded liabilities, monies that we are legally obligated to pay. This past year, we owed $6.5 million in the unfunded costs. That's the back funding needed for us to fill because the CalPERS system didn't achieve its investment objectives. And by 2024, that number will have jumped to $12.8 million. Wow. And it will continue to rise until about 2034. And so we have to figure out how to pay those bills while continuing to do everything we've talked about. We've made good progress. All of our employees during the recessionary time agreed to pay their full share of their pension costs, and we really do appreciate that. In addition, the police officers have recently agreed to pay more than their legal share, which is a first step toward a new approach as well. Our employees pay a significant percentage toward their health care costs. Our staffing levels today still haven't reached where they were in 2008, so we are doing more with less, and we contract for services where it's appropriate. And we have also, in the last year, set aside $14 million as a down payment toward those future pension costs. But it's still not enough, and we will still need to be doing more. So that's what keeps me awake at night, besides thinking about my granddaughter and fun things that she likes to do.
Cindy, as mayor, you've initiated something called the Second Saturday Spotlight. Can you tell me about it?
I'm really excited to be able to do that. It's a monthly program. It's a reprise of what we did in 2013, the last time I was mayor. And it's basically a program where we invite the community to come out with us on the second Saturday of each month to learn something about one of our great community assets. It's about getting a behind-the-scenes tour of an organization such as the Animal Rescue Foundation, which is where we're going this Saturday, and finding out how they, in fact, care for the animals and make them available to the community. It's 90 minutes, starts at 9 in the morning, ends about 12:30, And we have some of the great community assets already on tap and lined up. As I said, this month, in a couple days, is Animal Rescue Foundation. In February, it's the Lesher Center. In March, it's all about Meals on Wheels and senior services. Open Space in April. John Muir, Walnut Creek is going to open their doors and give us some backstage stuff in May, and then a bunch of other ones. It's open to all ages, but we do have some restrictions on age depending on the organization. And we can take about 75 each time because of just space limitations. The other thing that we're doing in tandem is there's an optional tour of the nearby neighborhood, residential neighborhood, as part of this, so that people become more familiar with the diversity of housing that we have in Walnut Creek, from our single-family neighborhoods to our more multifamily neighborhoods. And so that would occur from 10:30 to about 11:45. So if people are interested, we invite them to come out, and you can get more information and sign up at the city's website, www.walnut-creek.org/spotlight.
Thank you, Mayor Silva, very much for your time.
It's been fun. Thank you very, very much, and thank you for doing this for the community.
A lot to look forward to this year.